Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Shay Ryan Douglas from the Earth Heroes TV platform, and today I'm joined with Simone Milasas, who's coming from Southeast Queensland, joining me from the beautiful rainy coast at the moment. Usually this place is the Sunshine Coast, but at the moment it's a little bit wet and rainy, so we're adjusting and staying warm. But I just wanted to introduce Simone quickly. She's for those who aren't aware of the amazing work that she's done in the world around access consciousness, she's also created her own modality and shares on creationships, which is what we're going to be touching on today, the power of choosing your relationships and your partner from a conscious place, someone who's found herself in quite a significant amount of debt, but has found joy in her business, is one of her books, Finding Joy in Her Business, to be able to get herself out of debt and, be an innovative leader in that space. So I'm really excited to explore that entrepreneurial journey and unpacking conscious business with her. And, as a really beautiful speaker and author, Simone has been, as she would say, a self-confessed compulsive creator, which I love, this spirit of creation that is just beaming through the life of Simone. It's a really exciting conversation. I'm really honored to have you as a guest, and want to thank you for your time, of course. So thanks for joining me, Simone.
Thank you for having me here, Shay. It's a pleasure. As
So
you said, in our Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
Rainy coast.
Yeah, I know. It's a rainy coast at the moment, it feels like this year. But after the conversation with Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane Hare, they recommended that I get in touch with yourself, who's based in the same region as me. And yeah, I'm really excited. I know you got your own podcast, Choice, Change and Action, where you do weekly conversations. But I really want to just open up the chat by sharing or hearing from you, particularly around your journey and maybe what was a catalyst for. It seems access consciousness has played a role in your development. I'd be curious to hear the story on what really catapulted you into this path that you're on right now and sharing what you share.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, there's a big story, long story, etc. But I'll try and cut it down. Is for as long as I can remember, Shay, I desired to have something different in life. I looked around at the world, looked around at what people were choosing, and was like, this is insane. There's got to be something different. There's got to be something greater. The trauma and drama and all of that, and it didn't match the energy of what I knew was possible. And also, what didn't match the energy was normal. Like people, it's like you're at high school. What are you going to do when you leave school? Then what are you going to do? Are you going to get married? Are you going to have kids? Do you get that dog? Like, and I was just like, I wanted to tear my hair out. So I know I was different from a really young age, and sort of started looking at, okay, so what else is possible? What else is around the world? So when I was 19, I left home and I went overseas and I traveled. I told everyone I was going for 6 months, and I ended up traveling for 3 years and just discovering the world and meeting some amazing people and having a lot of fun and being that. But throughout that time, I still had this, like, everywhere I went, I was like, no one seems happy. It didn't matter if I met people who had a lot of money or people who were poor or the religion that they chose, the color of their skin, and none of that. I was like, where's the happiness? Where is that joy that I know is actually possible? So I started writing when I was living in London, I started writing this whole piece out on vulnerability. And my point of view was like, what if people could be more vulnerable with each other when they meet? It's sort of, instead of like these walls and these judgments that everyone holds in place, what if we had this place where, like a little kid, when a little kid sees another kid and they're like, hi. And they don't even care where you're from, what your name is, do you smell, whatever. They're just like, hi, will you play with me? That energy. And so I was very much like, what do I create to make that possible in the world? And for me, as you mentioned, Joy Business is one of the first books that I wrote, and it's always been a pleasure for me. Business, I've always found it really joyful, mainly because I think that anything that you can choose as a business can be so malleable, and you can create it out there in the world, and you can actually get out there in the world what it is you want through business. So for me, that's why I love Joy Business. So But, you know, in all of that, there were so many hiccups and so many, you know, things that I chose that probably weren't the best choices. Like, I like to say I've lived a colorful life, and, you know, all the books I've written, everything I do is access consciousness tools. I know you mentioned my own modality, but it's not. It's actually access consciousness. It's just called relationships done different. It's through access. And when I met Gary Douglas, the founder who you've had on the show, and Dane, I was not happy, I'm gonna say, and I had a business at the time. I was at doing a festival at Mind, Body, and Spirit Festival, and it was called Good Vibes for You, the business. And for me, it was like, how do I inspire people to create something different in the world, you know? And I had these T-shirts and merchandise, and I just wanted to, you know, grab people by the shoulders and be like, don't you see there's something different? There has to be something different. So when I met Gary and Dane, it was like this huge breath of fresh air. And the first major class that I went to, I actually sat there, and I remember Gary was talking, and I just sat there and I started crying, and he had a break, and he came over and he looked at me and he went, "What's going on?" And I said, "Well," he was talking about taking drugs, and I said, "You got me on the drug thing." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, I took so many drugs. I was taking lots of drugs, and because to me it matched the energy of something different." And I was talking to him about it, and he said, "Well," he said, "you know, choosing consciousness and taking drugs is like sitting on the edge of the fence. One day you're going to end up impaled." And I went, "Okay." So I walked outside, and he didn't say don't do it, which I was very happy, because if he'd say don't do it, I probably would have, you know, just gone F you and walked away. Like, you know, I get to choose my life, sort of thing, you know, petulant, hands on hips. And he didn't. He was like, "It's a choice." And I was like, okay. And I went outside and I looked at it all, and I was like, God, I said, you know what? My life has not really been working that great. And I know I was taking drugs as this escape to find something different. And it was working. It was like a band-aid solution. You know, it was working to an extent, but not a great deal. And I went, "Well, Simone, it's a beautiful day," because it was sunny in the Sunshine Coast then. It's like I could take myself off to the beach, or I could walk back into this room and find out what this guy's talking about. And I did that. And that weekend, actually, I stopped taking drugs, just stopped, because I was like, oh, holy shit. I was like, this is what I've been looking for. Like, what this guy's talking about is everything that I knew was possible, but no one was talking about it. Because I find so much, Shay, there's so many things in life when you start talking about it, and you know, when you find like that, you have that you find your peaks, and you just go, yes, that, you know. And if anything, the last few years I think have really opened that up, where people have sort of aligned with each other in a way of, let's be in question, let's look at what we can choose as our life and as our reality, not have to, you know, mainstream everything. So that is my abridged version, believe it or not, Shay.
Well done. I love it. And I love your honesty in your journey and your path that you've taken and the choices that you've made. That's really, really cool. I'm curious, what you said when you went traveling, that was a bit of a journey of expansion for you. Where did you go when you went traveling? What places stood out for you that were really significant?
Well, I first went to the US, and I remember, Shay, being like 19 and being in LA, and I was in Venice Beach. You know, we were staying at the Cadillac, you know, hotel or something like that, a backpackers there, and there was a shooting down the road and all this. And I remember just going, oh, like, am I meant to be here? Like, this is like the movies, you know, you watch that on TV, you don't live it. And I remember having a moment just going, am I too young to travel? But I did it, you know, and I spent 3 months in the US. Actually spent a month on Miami University campus, which was a hell of a lot of fun. I learned a lot. We stayed with these guys that we knew, 4 guys, and just, it was incredible. And then I went to London, and London was actually very much my base, very typical Aussie. Used London as a base, and lived with, you know, I lived in a house at one stage that had 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and there was 21 of us there. So I know, but you know what? I never remember waiting for the bathroom. Is what I've always like. I don't know what happened, but it was like it was available. So, you know, did that, and then used London as a base. And I worked in Greek islands, in Austria, and kept traveling around Europe. I'd make money and travel, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. No, that's awesome. I had very much a similar experience moving over to the US. I was 17, and like growing up in Australia, I had experienced and witnessed, American movies and TV shows, and conceptualized somewhat of what their cultural kind of, lifestyle was like. But I was, like you said, shocked. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm living in a movie. It was a bit of a surreal moment, and
Yeah.
then, lo and behold, later on, I was in an American kind of documentary movie, and it was like, well, this is really spinning me out, talking about, um, simulated universes and whatnot. It's pretty wild. But
Yeah. But that's the sort of thing though, Shay, that I looked at and went, is this it? Like, I mean,
yeah,
you mentioned the documentary you're in. I watched it, as I told you before we started talking, and
yeah,
it's like there's so much that people create on the planet that is not real. Like, it's just
mm,
this, like, how do I, what I find is most people try and be like others, or they try and be liked by others.
mm-hmm,
Both of those are going to trap you. It's like, and where are you in the computation? So I love what you're doing now. And also, I get so much the work with access consciousness too, is empowering you to know that It's like, what do you know? What do you want to create? Not how do
mm.
I be like somebody else? How do I act like somebody else? Is that the right thing? Will I be accepted? Will somebody like me? And to me, that's why I started creating what I did too, because I was like, this is not making sense to me.
Mm. No, that's so cool. Thanks for sharing that. And that's something I'm keen to go down that journey with you. Particularly, you mentioned obviously part of your passion is to inspire people to create joyful businesses. And I'm curious what you would say to people who are kind of on the edge, or maybe looking to create something of their own that they can generate, revenue from, that they can live off, and something that's aligned with their passions, and something that's meaningful and giving back. What's your kind of suggestions for those people who, when it could be safe and offer security to stay in a job that they don't like, but it pays the bills, let's say, as opposed to stepping into their potential as a creator and choosing to, um, you know, go down the path of the unknown
Mm.
and create a business that brings them joy, but is also meaningful and gives back to the community, or to humanity, or to the environment. But it's something that is their passion and what they love to do. What's your suggestions?
So I would say there's already too much pressure on you by what you've just said. Break it down. It's like, make it simple. Don't make it significant. It's like, what do you want to create in your life? And for me, like, I think you need to get clear on your platform. And when I say platform, I mean, like, you know, just a small thing. I wanted to like change the world and the way people looked at each other and the way they were with the planet. But that was literally how I started. It was like I was walking along and I'd be like, wow, people just ignore the planet as well. And this is our planet. This is amazing. Like, this is our planet. What are we going to do with it? And like I said, the people, I think for a long time, I've sort of functioned from this utopian ideal that maybe, without all holding hands and singing kumbaya, we can create something different here on planet Earth. And I'm realizing as I get older that there is a lot of stupid people and a lot of idiots as well. And I'm constantly having to be in more allowance of that as well. But I think if you get your platform and then go, well, what do I want to choose? What matches the energy of that? And then you choose what matches the energy. And then as you're, creating this, it's like then something else might pop up. Like the business I mentioned that I first started was called Good Vibes for You. And I did all my own merchandise and did all of this. And then I ended up doing merchandise for Pete Murray, who's an Australian
Mm,
singer, and, went on tour with him. And it was because I knew his wife and how it all ended up. But because it was really successful, a lot of people started going, oh, who's your company? Like, what's this? And I have the, access all areas, backstage passes and all of that. And there was a moment in my life and I went, wow, because I loved the music industry and I worked in it for a while when I was younger. But I thought that I had everything I wanted. And then when I was there and you're backstage and you've got these passes and you're doing all that, I was like, this is not it. This is not matching truly what I'd like to have. So, and then when I found access, I went, oh, this is more like what I would like to have. So I think it's more like the ability to choose. You've got to choose. Don't try and work it all out before you choose. And then the ability to choose again. Like, just because you chose something, it doesn't mean you have to stick to it. You're actually allowed to change your mind. And don't listen to everybody else. It's like, know what it is that works for you and keep choosing that. And also don't make it, like, I would say, not make it meaningful and not make it significant. If you're truly choosing what brings you joy and what you'd like to create in the world, it's going to end up having an impact on others anyway. It really does. And don't make it about the money. And I know it's a really hard one for people to get, because they go, but I've got to pay my rent, I've got to do this. And, look, if you're truly choosing what works and you're aware of the money, then money starts to show up. And I mean, the second book I wrote was called Getting Out of Debt Joyfully, because I created myself to be a financial mess. Like, I really did. And then I finally went, oh my gosh, I have to actually start looking at this. And I did. And to me, it's always be aware of your finances, but don't create based on the finances. And don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. Like, if you have a job where you're earning money and it's working, do it to support the other thing, like while you're doing that. And then you got to really learn to listen to the whispers, like those whispers of the universe, of consciousness, of possibilities that go, hey, over here. And you go, oh, that. But stop trying to follow what everybody else is choosing and choose what you know. So, and I would also say, I mean, I know you've used the word passion a few times, and it's like, what if it's not about, because do you know the definition of passion? It means to die on the cross. The passion of Christ. So you're dying on the cross, right? So how many people like literally have that thing if they go, I would die for this, this is my passion. And they end up destroying themselves. Whereas what if you were what you chose each day, like you and your body, what works, sort of thing. And what if the purpose of life is to have fun? So you kept choosing from that. And you change, like, from what you want from your 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, it changes. So as you called it, be willing to choose again and choose again and choose again and choose again. That's really important, I think.
Yeah, no, that's great. I really love that. And something that stands out in what you shared is listening to the whispers. I think that's really vital. There was a season in my life that I was really numb to a lot of those whispers, and I didn't listen to it, and it came round and hit me really hard. It suddenly wasn't a whisper, it was a big yell into
Two
the
by four on the back of the head. Shay.
yeah, exactly. So that's great advice. Well, I mean, for me, for example, we'll just rewind the clock and not listening to the whispers. What's a practice that people can cultivate to be able to be still enough to receive those messages and hear the whispers that come through, to make the subtle shifts or little changes in the choices before they become, monstrous and destructive?
Well, I think there's a few different things you can do. And I mean, there's the typical of being quiet, like, and I always find nature is really helpful when you go out, because nature's loud, and it's like, but when you're in nature, and you've got that sense of space. But what also nature does for you is it has no judgment. So that, I think, is a key element. It's like coming out of judgment, because if you stop judging your choices, then you're here. But if you choose something and then you're spending your entire life trying to prove that you were right or that you weren't wrong, then that's what you focus on, rather than going, oh, I chose this, and go, oh, you know what? Guess what? It's a good thing I'm cute, because that wasn't a smart choice. I'm going to choose again, and have a laugh about it. So I think if you take judgment out of everything, then you start to hear those whispers. And most people, as Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, who you've interviewed, would say, most people would rather be right than be free. Well, I was definitely one of those people who would rather be right. And now, oh, Shay, I'd way rather be free and have that joy and happy and the ease in my world than try and be right. So, yeah. So I think taking the judgment out of everything, then you start to hear.
Yeah, that's massive. Yeah, I love it. I love what you shared there. And choosing to be free, that's a big decision to make rather than getting caught up in all the self-judgment. Ultimately, like when I want to go down the path of the relationships or creationships, as you say, and getting caught up. Big thing for me personally is like often finding myself judging myself. and even in the relationship that I'm at, and moving out of that state or in that mindset, coming back into choosing the partnership or choosing the relationship and creating together. What's your suggestions in that space, particularly with another person? Like, is it a daily thing to cultivate this creationship together, and what, what's your best suggestions for communication tools for relationships to thrive?
Again, I'm going to say the no judgment, and I feel like I'm doing some real advertising here. But the third book that I wrote is called "Relationship. Are You Sure You Want One?" And I actually wrote it with my ex, and we split up as we released the book, which was very funny. We're in America, and had all these TV shows and everything, and our PR agent was having a heart attack. She's like, "You can't break up the relationship. You just wrote a book about it." And we're like, "Yeah, but we can. That's the thing." We called it "Relationship. Are You Sure You Want One?" And we would like people to be in question. And I think you need to be in question every single day, Shay. So, like that energy of asking, okay, well, does this actually work for me? Now, it's not like, does this work for me? And then you're like, no, it doesn't, and then you go over to your partner and like, you know why it doesn't work? It's like not about creating an argument. It's like looking at it and going, does this actually work? And if it's not working for you, is there something that can change? Not, again, I want to reiterate, this is not about going and telling your partner, these are the things I've decided you need to change in order for this to work. No, it's like, okay, so I don't know, it could be something so simple like your partner's really messy and you're like super clean. That sort of thing, you go, nah, and it's a throwaway. But years to come, that's the sort of thing that blows everything up if you don't actually have a look at it and go, number A, can I live with it? No. All right, so now what next? Let's get a cleaner. Let's get a cleaner once a week or twice a week to do the laundry and do everything. So you start looking at different possibilities that create more ease. So if you are shoving anything under the carpet, like, under the table, as they say, that is going to rear its ugly head in this insane moment where you're just like, and you never empty the dishwasher, It's like, and you're like, really? Like, this is where we're at now? So I really do think it's being in question. And if you look at the definition, and I bring up a few definitions because before 1937, words had a very different meaning. Like, they changed a lot of the words that we use. Like, for example, the word want. If you look in a dictionary before 1937, it has all these definitions that mean to lack. So we say, I want more money, as an example. We're really saying, I lack of money. And it's like, it's a mindset. I get that. But look at the etymology of words and where they came from. And the word relationship means the distance between two things. So it's the distance between you and something or someone else. So that's where we were sitting in Gary and Dane's lounge room, actually, in Houston, Texas. And we started, we were talking about this and we came up with the word creationship because we're like, that's what it should be. Like, most people create a relationship and then they start to lessen themselves, which I think is interesting because you meet someone and you're like, "Mwah," and you have this like, yay, you want to play? And then you start to go, oh, they probably won't like it if I do this. And they probably won't like it if I do that. And they start to cut pieces of themselves off. So before you know it, you're just like this like stick figure, and the person's looking at it and going, you're not that much fun to be around anymore, because you're not being you. Like, being you is one of the most attractive things in the world. And to me, if you are going to create a relationship, then what if you ask for a creationship? And a creationship should be where you create at least 20 times more together with someone than what you would alone. And this is not just a partner, like the one that you're, having sex with or who you'd like to have sex with. Everyone, the people you work with, your friendships, all of it. What if you looked at all of your relationships that you have and you created at least 20 times more because that person was a contribution to you and you were a contribution to them? To me, that matches more the energy of what I'd like to see on the planet.
Yeah, me too. I really love that you dive in deep into the etymology of words and the definition in this. I think there's so much profound meaning to look at when discovering how words, and so I believe that they're governing our consciousness with the words that we choose to speak. And I love how you've made the choice to shift to that creationship the creationship as a relationship in its essence. And it seems that is a perspective of rather than, you know, what can I get from this, it's more about what can I give to this relationship or this person or this creation together, which I think is profound shift. And like you said, it's not lacking something or I need something, but it's what can I give.
Yeah, I mean, relationships, they're hard work. They're not like the easiest thing in the world. You know, you got to put the work in if you desire it to be great. So, and Shay, I think we're really lucky with where we are now in the world, because we don't have to be in a relationship. We get to choose it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, what if it was a choice and not a necessity? I mean, if you look at, you know, the history of relationships, it's like for hundreds, thousands of years, you had to get married. You had to get married to create wealth, you know, to bind families together for land, or, you know, whatever that was. And I mean, it used to be marry this person, but then you can have sex with whoever you want, but you have to marry this person. You know, there's all these like undercurrent like rules and regulations that would go on.
Mm.
And now it's like, I mean, in 1920s, 1930s, that's not that long ago. You know, a woman couldn't buy a house. It's like she couldn't go and do something on her own. She had to have the man in her life say yes or no to that. So now I think we're really at this space where, like, let's not abuse it. It's like, let's choose something different of what we can be for each other. You know, as
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, as infinite beings, like as the greatness of us, yes, men, women, all that, and what do we want to be in the world?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I love your perspective of appreciation at this stage. And you mentioned obviously a lot has changed in the last, you know, 15, 20 plus years. What do you foresee? It seems like, you know, today's day and age, there's more changing at a rapid rate moving forward,
Yeah.
and on a macro level, what do you foresee to come in those changes for humanity at this stage?
Oh, do you really want me to answer that? Because I'm not so sure it's very bright and sparkly, to tell you the truth.
That's
I
okay. If you want to answer it, feel free.
Yeah, no, I mean, I mean, I'm sort of making a joke, and I'm not. It's just like I think we're going to go. I think, as they say, you know, the shit has hit the fan, and there's going to be a lot more. And I think we're going to go through more hardships that we didn't think were going to be there, and that they are. And it's like to me, it's like almost like when you're cooking and you've got this sift and you're sifting the flour. There's a real diversity showing up in people, you know, and I think you've really got to dive deep. You got to dive deep with what it is that you would like to choose here. Why are you here? Why are you here on the planet? Like, truly, you know, what if we could be more like the animals and be more like nature, etc. And I think I actually get there's going to be a lot of people that end up dying and leaving the planet. I think we're going to have a lot less people in 15 years, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe more fighting. I mean, I've just been traveling, so I've been in Europe, and it's interesting because when, you know, Australia was very much still COVID mentality and vaccine mentality and right and wrong and, you know, all that sort of stuff. Uh, you're in Europe and war was imminent, you know, and then I'm in the US, and that's like, Jesus, the whole gun stuff and everything that's going on there is really prominent. So there's a lot of stuff going all around the world, and I think there's going to be a lot more devastation, which like I said earlier, I'm somewhere in my crazy world. I think I would like everyone to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It's like, you know, it's all going to be okay, but I'm not so sure. I think the planet itself has a really amazing capacity and ability to start shedding stuff as well. So, you know, watch out for it too. So, but I'm having fun. I'm like, you get to choose your reality. Like, it's like I am, you know, I don't know, I guess soaring above it all, and choose to be you each and every day. And what is that for you? Like, what actually works for you? Stop trying
Mm-hmm.
to buy into the mass, you know, the masses of what you're supposed to do, and start asking what it is that you would like to be here. And we get to create a different planet. We get to create a different future. But the only way we create that is by our choices.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. What would you suggest is the best choice that we can make right now in order to be prepared for potentially what's coming around the corner in the hardship?
Well, don't buy it as the only reality, because that's what I see. I mean, like I said, the beauty of traveling is, you know, when you watch world news or something, and it's so funny. You watch world news in Australia, and then you watch world news in London, and then versus, you know, Texas or something, and it's like it's so different. Like it's really fed to you. So don't believe that. Like go with what you know. Like we can hold hands and reach out to people all across the world, especially with the platforms we have now, where you do get to find your people. You do get to find the people who care about the planet, who want to take care of it, who want to look at a different way to be with other people. So I think look out for that, and don't buy all the induced fear and the induced point of view that is projected upon us. So yeah, you got to, like I said, you got to dive deep. You got to go, okay, I'm not, you know. And at one stage, Shay, to be honest, I went down this rabbit hole. Like I was just like, wow, I was doing all my own research about all this stuff. And I was just like on this endless thing of like, oh my God, the world is going to shit. And I went, I need help. So reach out, like, and ask your friends, you know, hey, you okay? You doing okay? Do you need something?
Yeah.
Like, what if this was the time that we do reach out to each other in a different way? And Gary and Dane were the two people. I rang them and I went, I need to talk to you. So I need to help me. It's like, I'm creating this to be an absolute mess. And they did. And know what it is that you would like to choose and create, and choose that. Right.
Yeah, that's so good. I really love that perspective. And again, I appreciate your honesty in sharing, and your openness in this conversation to go down that rabbit hole together. And all the support that you've shared. I mean, for those who are listening, I'll just pull it up here. But Simone Milasas, go to her website. It's SimoneMilasas.com for those who are listening, so you can get a little bit more insight into some of the events that she has coming up. A lot are done in person, but also online, and you know, some of her books that she has that are available that she spoke to today. Really worth a look into, because, you know, I really liked what you shared around being you in this time. When I feel, you know, if you can't be you now, when will you ever be you? So I really appreciate your time, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. Actually, I think there's a lot to. I know we only just covered the surfaces of some of the work that you do, and I'm sure there's so much more depth that can be explored, particularly in the business space as well as in the creation space. I really appreciate your time here today.
Thank you so much, Shay. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, no, it's really great. It's really awesome. So just to wrap it up, I got one last question for you.
Sure.
And you know, we've talked, and you, right? I mean, your podcast, for example, the Choice Change Action podcast is all about creating. This is what we've been speaking to today: creating a more beautiful world. You know, a place where we raise the next generation of children and families through that is ultimately, ideally, romantically, you know, void of suffering, let's say. But at the same time, we know that can be our greatest teachers. What would it look like in a world that had access to full consciousness and was living in this ideal, enlightened state of being? Obviously there would be no wars, but from your insights into accessing consciousness, what would that world look like if human beings had that tapped in potential, harnessed and honed?
I don't have an answer for you directly, because I think we need to choose it and discover it. But I do think a lot of what that is, I mean, Gary Douglas once said, what if the purpose of life was to have fun? And I got so annoyed at him, because I went, are you kidding me? Do you know all the conversations that I've had about my purpose of life is to help people, help animals, help, you know, this whole thing. And he was like, well, what if we're meant to have fun here? And to me, that matches way more the energy. It sort of feels like a cop out. Like you go, really? I'm allowed to just have fun? And it's like, yeah, but what if you have fun with every choice you made, you know, and you really experienced living? Like we get so caught up in so many things. And what if we actually started choosing, we started to choose to live. So let's find out what that is. And I actually don't really want to conclude what it would be like, because I say, let's keep choosing and let's find out together.
That's so good. I love it. I love it. Let's have fun.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Keep it easy. It's so good. Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much again for your time.
You're so
And
welcome, Shay. Thank you for having me on
yeah,
here.
appreciate it. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.